Live from London, this is BBC News. The White House confirms it inadvertently added a US journalist to a private group chat discussing classified military plans.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Russian negotiators say talks with the US on Ukraine were useful and will continue. A joint statement is expected shortly. Police and protesters clash in Istanbul as massive crowds demonstrated for a sixth successive night, demanding the release of the city's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu. We'll be live in Istanbul. And archaeologists in Britain say a hoard of Iron Age artefacts unearthed in northern England is the most important ever found. Hello, I'm Kylie Pentelow. President Trump's administration is facing political uproar after the White House has confirmed an American journalist was accidentally added to a private group chat and sent classified US military information about plans to bomb the Houthis in Yemen. Well, let's get some of the day's other news now. And Argentina's President Javier Milei says his government will release all military rule intelligence files from 5 decades ago. The announcement came on the anniversary of the military coup as thousands of opposition supporters took to the streets of Buenos Aires to demand justice for the victims. It's estimated 30,000 people were killed between 1976 and 1983. The largest bloc of the far-right politicians elected to the German parliament since World War II will hold its inaugural meeting today. The AfD will have 152 seats in the Bundestag. Chancellor Olaf Scholz's SPD party was defeated by the Conservatives led by Friedrich Merz in the election. Both parties have refused to enter into a coalition with the far-right. NASA says its Curiosity rover has detected fatty acids, which are the building blocks of life on Mars. The molecules were found inside a 3.7 billion-year-old rock. The find raises more questions and optimism that there was life on the red planet. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Anti-government protests Turkey has seen in years show no signs of stopping as the disquiet over President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's 20-year rule of the country continues to emerge. Thousands of people marched on the streets of Istanbul for a sixth night following the arrest of the city's mayor last week. Now, just a reminder that we are expecting that joint statement from the US and Russia in about half an hour about those Ukrainian peace talks in Riyadh. So do stay with us here on BBC News.
Tariffs in the pipeline. Trump threatens new levies on buyers of Venezuelan oil, but Wall Street ends higher on hopes US reciprocal tariffs will be more measured. About half of the UK's oil and gas needs could come from the North Sea, an industry body argues, but only if the government allows new licenses. Also in the programme, powered by Bitcoin, we report from Zambia, where a cryptocurrency company is rolling out mini power plants to rural villages. Hello and welcome. This is Business Today. I'm Sally Bundock in London. We start, though, with our focus on the White House, where President Trump opened a new salvo in the global trade war by threatening to impose 25% tariffs on any country that buys oil or gas from Venezuela. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're with Business Today. Now, the Chinese electric vehicle giant BYD is saying its revenues topped $100 billion for the first time last year. That's slightly more than the earnings of its main rival, the US giant Tesla. Another business story before we move to other news. The co-chief executive officer of the South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics has died from a heart attack at the age of 63. Han Jong-hee was in charge of the group's consumer electronics and mobile devices arm. That's the latest in business here on BBC News. A BBC investigation has found that the UK is shipping millions of waste tyres to India each year, where they're then being cooked in makeshift furnaces, causing potentially serious health problems. Instead of being recycled, the BBC's File on 4 Investigates programme has discovered that millions of waste tyres are being sold on the black market. Paul Kenyon reports.
Live from London, this is BBC News. A Russian negotiator calls Ukraine talks between US and Russian officials challenging but useful. A joint statement is due shortly. The White House confirms it inadvertently added a US journalist to a private group chat discussing classified military plans.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Police and protesters clash in Istanbul as massive crowds demonstrated for a sixth successive night, demanding the release of the city's mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. We'll be in Istanbul with the latest. And archaeologists in Britain say a hoard of Iron Age artefacts unearthed in northern England is the most important ever found. Hello, I'm Kylie Pentelow. Now first, President Trump's administration is facing accusations of incompetence after an extraordinary security plunder saw an American journalist accidentally added to a private chat group and sent classified US military information about plans to bomb the Houthis in Yemen. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. Now, Turkey's President Erdogan has accused the opposition of provoking a movement of violence after another night of street protests against his 22-year rule. Thousands marched in Istanbul for a sixth night following last week's arrest of the city's mayor, the president's leading political opponent. Now, if you were looking up at the sky last night, you might have suspected that you were seeing your first UFO. A large blue and white spiral appeared in the night sky above parts of the UK at about 8 o'clock and was visible for several minutes before fading. So what was it? Well, it's believed to have been caused by this, a SpaceX rocket that was launched in Florida. The Falcon 9 reusable rocket from Elon Musk's space company was on a classified United States government mission. It's thought the spiral was formed when the rocket ejected its leftover fuel and froze due to the altitude. Do stay with us here on BBC News. This is BBC News, the headlines. A Russian negotiator calls Ukraine talks between US and Russian officials challenging but useful. A joint statement is due shortly. The White House confirms it inadvertently added a US journalist to a private group chat discussing classified military plans. Police and protesters clash in Istanbul as massive crowds demonstrated for a sixth successive night, demanding the release of the city's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu. We'll be live with the latest from Istanbul. And a BBC investigation finds millions of used car tyres sent to India for recycling are instead being cooked down to salvage their core ingredients, causing serious environmental damage. Time to get all the latest business news now. Here's Sally.
Thank you very much indeed. Later today, the European Commissioner for Trade, Maros Sefcovic, will be meeting his American counterpart, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, in Washington. This is ahead of April's reciprocal tariffs deadline. Sefcovic said last week that little progress has been made in talks with Washington so far. We do have other business stories on our website and the BBC News app, but from me for now, it's back to you.
Sally, thank you very much. Now, it's pathetic. Those are the words of US Secretary of Defence Pete Hegseth, who has described what he perceives to be Europe's over-reliance on America for military support. Vice President J.D. Vance called it bailing out. New questions are being raised about the possibility of life on Mars as NASA says it's detected the largest organic compounds ever found on the red planet. The molecules were found inside samples of rocks that are billions of years old. They're thought to be the fragments of fatty acids, which on Earth are the building blocks of life. Now, just to remind you, we are waiting on that joint statement from the US and Russia following Ukraine peace talks, and we are hearing that US teams are said to be holding more talks in Saudi Arabia today. So we will bring you that statement as soon as we get it. Stay with us here on BBC News.
Hello there. It has been a quiet